I've known a lady for at least a couple of years, I'd say, who is addicted to drama. Every little thing is a big deal and a big story. So, like, you've all heard this before. Many of us have done it. My dog is so sick. These people get the attention of everybody in the office. And I'm so worried that, whatever, fill in the blank. I have such a bad cold. Have you ever noticed that rarely do people have a little cold? It's always a bad cold. Why'd you miss work? Bad cold. I mean, when does anybody ever say it was just a really minimal cold? But I don't know. I was just, treating myself. My son is picking on his brothers, and it's causing such a turmoil in our family. They're making changes at work, and I just don't think I can cope with these new duties. Drama is an addiction, just like cocaine, and it has to stop. It's only been in the last year, less, that I've realized that I've been stupid. I've underestimated this addiction and talked about it too little. I talk about people getting approval, sure, being afraid of disapproval, but the drama. I've talked about victimhood, which is close to drama, but drama is kind of an exaggerated, theatrical victimhood. So I heard from this lady, and she said, tonight I enjoyed my time with, Fred, my fiance. There were times that I wanted to create drama to spark conversation. I chose no drama. So memorize those last 4 words. I choose no drama. Drama is death. It's an artificial inflation of life and distortion of life. But it's possible not to give into it. Now, you just made that choice temporarily. You'll almost certainly have to make it again. Why do we do drama? Well, it's exciting. Like you said, you use drama to spark conversation. It draws attention. You want to enter a conversation and you just say, have a cold. Nobody notices. Oh, it's such a bad cold. Oh, I don't know how I came to work today. Oh, well, now everybody's looking at you. And it's all the difference is the presentation. It's energizing. Most people's lives are pretty boring and they live at a lethargic level. Watch people. But if they can induce drama, then they feel so much more alive. But it's hollow. And then you have to create it the next time and the next time. And in order to get people's attention, the drama has to get bigger and bigger. There have actually been people in the news who have, claimed to have been assaulted, to have claimed to have been the object of racial mistreatment. There's lots of incidents like this, where it turns out later, nothing happened. They created the entire event so that they could get media coverage, and there would be national media coverage of these people and their artificial stories. This lady, the drama addict, says, I'm grateful for these moments because I see how I want my life to be in reality. And that is the point. We slip out of the real world when we engage in drama. It's like we stop being real and we step onto a stage. We do it when we tend to do it. I'm not saying everybody does it all the time, but we tend to slip out of reality when we play video games or watch porn or anything that makes the world less real. And then it's like we're not really alive. This particular lady, the person who gets a lot of attention for drama, I said, if you really want to find out whether you use drama and how much, then ask your fiance to point out every time you say something in a dramatic way. And I coached him a little bit on, kind of what to look for and how to point it out, but not much. And she wrote like a week later and said, I can't speak a single sentence without my fiance going, drama, She'll say drama, drama. And I really doubt that he's making it up. When we've learned to get attention for our entire lives by being dramatic, it's only natural that we'd keep doing it. Addictions without significant intervention tend to continue. So we really have to pay attention to them and go into a kind of withdrawal, just like you would with opiates or cocaine or gambling or sex or whatever. It really is a withdrawal. But we first have to become aware of it. And it's a sneaky one. It's one I haven't paid enough attention to, I freely admit, in the last many years, because it's so common. When people say, I'm having such a hard time with my husband. Who would ever in a little group of people around the water cooler go, oh, really? Could you say that again without the drama? And that's what I suggested that this woman do, that she ask her fiance that in addition to saying drama, that he give her a way that she could say pretty much the same thing, relay the same information without the drama. Because simply stopping an addiction isn't enough. People who simply quit using cocaine, for example, have a relapse rate of about 95%, and that's when they go to treatment centers. We have to have something else to take its place, and we need people to help us see what those things are. Here's a story about a 22-month-old child, Zoe. And her mother says, every day I usually let Zoe have a single pouch of applesauce. Everything now comes in prepackaged pouches and bags and balloons, and it's amazing that things that kids have. And she said, and the mother says, so if she gets, really hurt, then I let her have an extra one. The interesting thing is, because the first thing that occurred to me is, well, if she gives the kid an extra one when the kid's hurt, then the kid's going to be hurt all the time. No, this is a child who's raised in an environment of unconditional love, and so she doesn't need to manipulate her. She's already filled with what she wants most, which is love. So mom says, in all of this time, she's never manipulated me for an extra pouch of sauce or pretended to be hurt, because in all the time that we've been doing this, she's only gotten an extra pouch 2 times when she was hurt. That's pretty good evidence that the child's not manipulating. Yesterday, she had a really bad fall and cried for another applesauce, and I gave her one. It cheered her up and distracted her, much like I might treat myself if I'm having a rough day. Adults do it all the time. They have a rough day, they have a glass of wine. They have a rough day, they sit and watch a movie. Whatever. They go for a walk and tell the kids, good luck playing in the street or whatever. And mom says, today Zoe was running to the elevator holding my keys and she fell and seemed really hurt. Must not have hurt too badly because I picked her up and snuggled her and she stopped in about 30 seconds. But then I noticed that the key had scraped her forehead above her eye and was bleeding a bit. I actually think Zoe has a higher tolerance to pain because I don't overreact to her pain. Oh, there's no doubt about this one, honey. I worked in emergency rooms for 6 years, and I watched little kids come in with, cuts and scrapes and whatever. And if I had to sew up a kid, every time I approached a kid, the kid would look over at the mother, no kidding, for the cue. So how much is this going to hurt me? And if the mother went, I was doomed. The kid would scream and holler. So I learned to just take the kid into the room by myself and tell the mother, you can't come in. If the kid doesn't have the cue of the mother that it's supposed to hurt, I discovered, man, I could sew little 3-year-olds up with lacerations that required 5, 6, 8 stitches without a tear. So we teach our children to be victims. No kidding. So if your child acts like a victim, there's possibly a lesson here. The mother continued, separate story. I mentioned before, and I actually read this before, that Zoe has made it her life's mission to kiss every crying person that she comes across. I've noticed that kids tend to actually stop crying when she kisses them because it's such a tender thing. Here's a 22-month-old little toddler who, hobbles on over like only toddlers can do and gives them a kiss. And even kids that she doesn't like or is afraid of, she still kisses them when they're upset, and they tend to stop crying. We all have a universal need for tenderness. And see, at 22 months and having been raised in an unconditionally loving home, she hasn't learned to be afraid of people. So she gives these kisses without conditions, without apprehension, without trading. She does it fearlessly. And so people feel better as a result. And there's quite a lesson here, actually, for the rest of us. Here's somebody who says, I sent you an email about the relationship with my wife. And you called me, and we had a nice talk. I don't remember the talk, but I believe you. Thank you. But now tonight I can't sleep, thinking about a friend who is angry at herself and not forgiving herself for her husband who has all of a sudden left her. Am I out in left field to tell her that it was not her responsibility for his leaving, that it was his choice? Should she blame herself and not forgive herself? First, focus on your own marriage. We talked about that on the phone. You need to be concerned far more about that than about a friend. So that's the most important thing I could tell you. Second, now we'll talk about your friend. Her husband leaving is all about a lifetime of emotional pain, starting from his early childhood. She had nothing to do with that. Now, she has her own pain, sure. So she has added to his pain, yes, but she's not responsible for the majority of it. So when people say to me things like, well, my husband's left me, I'm so responsible, I make up these numbers, I realize, because I couldn't possibly know this, but I will sometimes say, you're responsible for 13% of your husband's pain. For not loving him, for not supporting him, for being whiny or witchy toward him. But he came to your relationship with 87% of his pain already there. And although I'm making up the numbers, they're not terribly far off. It's the wounds that we experienced earliest that have the greatest effect. So it's just the truth that she's not responsible for the majority of it. And it's the truth that sets us free, not just meaningless, comforting words like, oh, don't feel bad, it wasn't your fault. Unless you have something to back that up, it just sounds like a lie. And when people are in pain, they really don't like being lied to, even if you're trying to make them feel better. It's like somebody's just died and the wife is grieving there at the funeral home, and people come up and say, well, he's in a much better place. Unless you're pretty darn sure of what you're saying and you know what she believes, it comes across as really pretty hollow. Oh, it was his time to go. Same thing here. So yeah, she has some role. He was already wounded when they married, so that's not her fault. She was already wounded, so she did her best. She couldn't have loved him more. She was already wounded herself. So she has nothing to blame herself for. Are we clear here? And she can be learning about real love now so that she can be happy, and so she can have a happy future relationship. Without learning, she'll just repeat it. She'll go through, she will attract a similar guy. She'll be the same person. She's going to get the same result. That's just how it goes. Now, this last one's a little iffy, but it's possible, and I've seen it many, many times, especially when people come here for interventions, for example. If she learns about loving and she admits to the part she played in not loving him, she could contact him and admit her part in not loving him and her part in his leaving. And I've seen that make a pretty big difference in a great number of marriages. when he leaves and she just calls him and says, oh, please come home, that doesn't mean anything. He left because it was miserable. Why would he want to come home for more of it? Or I'll try harder. That's really hollow, because he's going, you're going to do more of what drove me away. But if you call a spouse who's left and say, I've been a complete idiot. I had no idea how to love you, and now I'm learning how. Would you be willing to learn with me for, 30 days? And let's see how it turns out. Well, I've seen that turn around so many times that I actually highly recommend people call a partner who's left, even if the partner has been gone for a year or more, and even if the partner has already found somebody else, unless, of course, they're married to them and, you're divorced from that guy. Couples can't possibly know whether their relationship could have worked unless they try the one thing that works, which is unconditional love. So you got nothing to lose by taking responsibility, at least for your part, and learning to do things differently. Here's somebody who says, I can't see clearly on this issue. About 4 years ago, my dad made some bad financial decisions, resulting in his having less disposable income. So he came to me asking for help by way of a loan. It was a large sum of money, and I was well able to afford to loan it to him at the time. We agreed to put a charge on a business, I guess the equivalent, this is somebody from another country, of a lien on a business that he owned, to safeguard the loan in case he died unexpectedly. So that if he died, then there was a contract at least that says that business would be sold and she'd be paid back. I can tell you that before I even keep reading, pretty much on the whole, it's never a good idea to loan people money unless you're willing to lose it. If you can't afford to lose it, don't do it. You're not a bank. You don't know how to research credit. And people regard a loan to an individual later. I had a friend tell me once, he said, if you loan people money, he said, don't do it because they will hate you. And I thought, what kind of pessimistic guy is this? What sense does it make to hate the person who loaned you money? Well, I've since done it a number of times, and he was right. When people borrow money from you as a friend, they don't regard the loan like they would to a business, to a bank. And so it tends to go badly. You continue. Now, some years later, I've still not received the loan back, and I find myself needing the money due to my own financial issues that have changed. The business that the loan was secured by is currently not sellable, so I can't get the cash out of that business. Last month, my dad sold another property, but decided not to use that money to pay me back because he says he needs the cash, and his new wife, who is not my mother, will not allow him to pay me back from the sale. So my dad has the money, but he's not paying me back. See, this is a problem. And my relationship with him is becoming kind of strained over this. Yeah, you would think. I feel like I lent him the money in good faith, and he agreed with me at the time if he ever sold anything, I'd be paid back. But now I feel lied to and betrayed. Well, this is simple, and this is a really good illustration of the difference between being victimized and feeling victimized. So, were you lied to? Yes, because he told you he'd pay you back as soon as he could. It happens that the loan was guaranteed by a business that is now not sellable. But see, the loan wasn't made on the basis of just the sellability of that business. He said he'd pay you back as soon as he could. He lied. You said you were betrayed. You were betrayed by your own father. So were you victimized? Yes. Anytime somebody treats you in an unloving way where you don't agree to it, you are victimized. But there's a difference between being victimized and feeling victimized. You are entitled to be paid back, but feeling like a victim is not going to help you. So what to do? I would first simply tell him that you need the money now and remind him of his promise to pay you if he sold anything. If he refuses, he probably will, since he's afraid of his wife, more afraid of his wife than you, then you have to make a choice. Remember, this was a business loan. If you have the paperwork for it to show that he borrowed the money and promised to pay you back, you sue him for the repayment. Well, but he's my father. Well, make a choice, honey. Clearly, he doesn't care what you think already. So if you sue him, what are you going to do? Make him care about you less? Or you decide you either sue him or you just let it go. You choose. I can't choose for you. You have to decide what matters. But what we tend to do is we say, well, I can't sue him because he's my father and he'll be mad. Yeah, but he's already made it clear he doesn't care about you. So who cares if he gets mad? If you have no papers to sue him with, you decide whether you want to continue a relationship with him. It's up to you. Obviously, he's not honest or loving, but you have to decide whether it's worth losing your relationship with him over this. You may not have really had a relationship with him, and there's nothing to lose. Only you can choose, but no anger about it. It's simple business. You made the loan knowing that there's no such thing as a guaranteed loan. You knew you were taking a risk, so you have a part in this. Are you willing to go after him to get the money back, or let it go? But resenting him won't help you. Yes, you were victimized, but feeling like a victim, that'll just screw you. Oddly, tonight we're talking about two people who are addicted to drama. I know a lady who's just a drama queen, so easily offended. Tears and screaming and all of that stuff. She had an intervention and she got it. She got it that she's a drama queen. She felt loved. She learned that she's not a drama queen, she's a queen. She had a conflict with her husband. This is after the intervention, like, I don't know, 2-3 weeks later. They began to fight, and then he had to leave on a trip. So they weren't even able to finish the fight. I know, how unfulfilling is that? I mean, that's just not fair. And she wrote to me and she said, she described the fight. She said, after I received your email and remembered that I'm a queen, which is what I'd told her in my response to her, she said, I decided just to continue to be loving. John left on a trip, but I offered to give him a ride to the airport, and he was a little irritable, but I chose to be loving anyway. And it felt a lot better than what I've always done before, which is protect myself and attack him. Oh, honey, bless you. This is Hall of Fame stuff. You had every reason in the world to feel victimized. You were having a fight. He was being unkind to you. He was being irritable. You could have justified, lashing out and getting him back. But you chose to be loving. It always works out better that way. Always. Even if he doesn't respond beautifully, at least you feel happy. You continue. The next day, he sent me a text on his trip, and he apologized for not showing me more love. I have never received an apology or a text like this in my entire marriage. She said, oh my blank, 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 blank. This stuff really works. It really does. If we consistently do it, it works. In fact, you can count on it. You will be happier, and sometimes your partner will respond beautifully, but you win. You continue. I replied to him, don't give it another thought. And the miracle is that I meant it. Yeah, no kidding. Miracles all over the place. Knowing you and how quickly and how tearfully and dramatically you respond to being offended, for you to choose to be loving, This is magical stuff. You continue. In the meantime, my cousin and I had breakfast, and he said, something's really different about you. This is in the several weeks since the intervention. I told him that we had gone to see you, and his last words to me at breakfast were, you are an amazing woman, and you really deserve to be a queen. She said, how fun is this? Everybody I meet is asking me if I've had work done, meaning that whether I've had plastic surgery done. To everybody who's listening, you just wouldn't believe the difference in this woman's face. When in the moment that she first completely let the love in, everything about her changed. She just looked like a different human being. And now people are seeing it. I mean, she continues, wow, today nobody can steal my happiness. I keep remembering my time with you, and my mantra is, I know nothing. God, teach me, and I feel very grateful. The results are predictable when we keep the laws of happiness. This woman made a choice to keep the laws of happiness instead of getting retribution and joining in on the fight and being right. You keep the laws, you get the rewards. A coach writes and says, a coaching client of mine, a single mom, has a son who will be entering high school this year. He's very gifted and he knows it. He has the opportunity to go into a program at a school that will give him a better shot at good colleges and scholarships, but he's resisting it because it doesn't quite fit in with what he likes, both for subjects and in preparation for college. I think there's a power play involved here between the two of them. She's been working on being filled up and more loving with him, and he's responding pretty well most of the time, but they have an history of arguments that have escalated to an unliving point. The coach is still speaking. My inclination is for the son to decide for himself, but the mother thinks that this is too important to be left to a 13-year-old. Do you have any thoughts? So this is about which school to go to, or to go into a program at a different school, if I remember. I think it's 2 different schools. Suppose that there's a choice involving this same 13-year-old and his mother, where the boy doesn't want to go to school at all. He wants to play video games all day, and mother wants him to attend school. Well, the solution's obvious. He has to go to school. He has no choice here, either morally or legally. He isn't old enough to decide to stay home. So that's clear. Second scenario, the boy doesn't want to do any work around the house, but the mother wants to teach him responsibility. Solution? The mother must love and teach and impose consequences until the boy learns responsibility, because this is an indispensable quality in life that he couldn't possibly understand the importance of. Okay? So when a child couldn't possibly understand the importance of something and the consequence is clear, then the parent needs to make the smart choice. But now we get to the situation you described. Neither the boy nor the mother could really know at this point, at this age, what the boy will end up wanting to do with his life in 20 years. Nobody knows whether he wants to be an academics, be a professor, be an independent writer, in which case it's going to matter very little which school that he went to, become a performer in a dance troupe, in which case it doesn't really matter what school you go to. Nobody knows the future. It's impossible to know what the boy really, truly wants to be or to do for a living. So the mother can't claim to know better because she doesn't really know at all. So let the kid go where he wants to go. Let him make a choice. Since we don't really know, err on the side of letting the kid make his own choice. It might be the best choice. He might make a choice initially and then change his mind and go to the other school. Doesn't really matter. The real lesson is Where a choice is obviously required or necessary for happiness, parents get to intervene. In fact, they should, because they're preventing an intolerable consequence. Where a choice is a matter of preference, with admittedly some possibility of one choice being better for the child, but not certain, in most cases the child has to make the choice, or he will feel controlled, unloved, and miserable. And that consequence is certainly intolerable. See? So we have the certainty of a child feeling controlled versus, well, it might be a better program. Like parents, give you another example. Parents who write me and say, well, but I really think my child should learn to play the piano, so I'm forcing him to take piano lessons. You don't have any idea whether this kid's going to end up wanting to play piano later in life, really. I made each of my kids take piano lessons until they could play a relatively simple but not nothing song that I picked. I didn't make it too difficult. I made it so that after about 2 years of taking piano lessons, they could play this if they were paying attention at all. Because playing the piano really can be a wonderful way to musical appreciation. I played the piano all my life and the organ and really liked it, but that doesn't necessarily mean my kids will. So I considered it not too big an investment on their part, considering that the alternatives were, watching TV and making pipe bombs in the backyard, that they'd practice for 2 years where they could at least play this piece. And if they got to where they could, then they could choose to continue or not. Most chose not to. I don't regret it at all. But some did continue and play much better than the others. And they all enjoy music to varying degrees. We just don't get to make our kids into exactly what we want. We just have to be sure they understand certain principles, like responsibility, for example, or being loving. Those are not optional. Here's somebody who says, could you define closeness and tenderness in the context of real love, the difference between them and how they fit into our real love work? I must say I've never been asked this question. While these are everyday words, I'm not 100% sure I know what they look like in real love. And part of me wonders if I'm able to distinguish the real love versions from entities that are tainted with imitation. They're clearly feelings, so not something to get into my head about, but some clarity might be help. They're actually not necessarily feelings. You say that they are, but let's look at them both. Closeness. Closeness would be defined as without distance. The opposite of close is far away. So if you get two people who trade imitation love perfectly, they're close. They're not far away. Two men in battle. Two men who are fighting on the same side of battle. Let me tell you, during a battle, two guys who are fighting side by side and getting shot at and shooting everybody else, they are close. But does that mean they're emotionally close? No, but they are really close. In fact, very often, men who have fought together, even in 1 or 2 battles, will be friends for life. Two criminals who are breaking into a store are close because they're united by their action. But emotional closeness isn't just about interacting closely. It's about being emotionally open and therefore having no barrier. It's about feelings and actions. Partners, genuine partners, experience closeness. And the definition of a partnership is that each person opens up completely and gives everything they have and everything they are to each other and to the partnership. Oh, that's real closeness in real love terms, as opposed to other ways that you can be close, but not in a loving way. Tenderness, another word that can be used in real love terms or be misused. Tenderness often means soft feelings, as in not hard. We feel that way toward a puppy. We experience feelings of tenderness in a romantic movie. Those are feelings. Real love tenderness is more than that. It's a feeling of caring without demands, without disappointment, without hard expectations, of having another person matter to us. That's tenderness, and involves both feeling and actions. New subject. Here's somebody who says, my family is always asking us to go places, vacations, dinners, babysit their kids, going to movies, whatever. We feel like we have no life at all because we feel like we have to accept every invitation. After all, they're family, right? We feel kind of trapped. How can we say no? Or can we say no and still be loving? Pretty easy. Unconditional love is what you give freely. It's not what you feel obligated to give. And your question just reeks of obligation and duty and guilt. My gosh, it's awful. It just gives me the creeps reading it. So you can say something like, do your own version. Oh, you're so kind to invite us, but we have other things to do that night. You don't have to tell them that, we're going to be watching the grass grow in our backyard, or we're going to be watching a television show, or we're going to be sleeping. You don't have to always tell them. If they keep asking, you can be even more direct, but not unkind. You're kind to invite us, but with all that we've got going on, we just don't have much time to do a lot of other things. It's not about you. We tell this to people all the time. If you don't say that kind of thing to your family, you're going to feel trapped. I mean, you already said it. You feel trapped. So people say this to me all the time. Oh, I could never say that to my family. Well, then you must like being trapped. See, we want a way of telling our families that we want to do what we'd like to do, which is actually what we get to do. But we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Well, so you don't get to make the second choice. You choose what you want to do, and if people's feelings are hurt, well, that's their problem. Personally speaking, I say this kind of thing to people all the time. To my sister, brother, parents, and friends, and just about everybody on earth. I've got a mission in life. I know why I'm here. I know why I'm here on earth. I know what I'm here to do. And I determine how I'm going to spend my time. And my free time is pretty precious. I hold it pretty close to me to use for relaxation. Not talking, not babysitting, often not doing anything, like sometimes chopping wood, because the wood never asks me a question. I get to do that. I get to choose what I do for my relaxation time. Some people find that weird, and I don't care. The minute I do care what somebody else thinks about the choices that I make for myself, I'm pretty screwed, because now I'm going to make choices out of guilt and obligation again. Here's somebody who says, you've described to me a pattern that I've denied for a long time, but I think I'm beginning to see it. That alone has very cool potential. Realizing decades-old patterns is no small trick, because we have to recognize the pattern while we're living in the pattern. That's a miracle. You continue. I tend to ask a question and get an answer, and then ask more questions without hearing the answer. Fear prevents me from really listening or hearing the answer. I recognize this pattern is selfish and controlling and needing to be right and lying and not loving and not trusting and not taking responsibility, because I want you, meaning me, or whoever, to do the work for me when I ask questions. I'm lazy and fearful. Those are difficult patterns to break. And most people can't do it. Most people can't break the pattern of being lazy and irresponsible, taking responsibility for their own lives. It's too difficult. You have a mixture of needing to be right, fear that if you're not right, you'd be nothing, trying to manipulate your fear, fear that you can't, and it just goes on and on. This is not a criticism for the benefit of those who are listening. I know this person. That's why I'm able to say some of these things more specifically. I know a lot about all of these behavior patterns, and they're tough to quit. But the alternative, not working on our patterns, is unthinkable. It's death. I get a letter from somebody every single day, just an hour ago, somebody who said, oh, I have these behavior patterns, but they're just so hard to stop. Well, sometimes I just write back, then don't stop them. Just keep doing them. I'm lying and attacking and I act like a victim and nobody wants to be around me, but I just find it so hard to stop. Well, then, honey, just keep doing it. But you have to live with the consequences. Every choice has a price. Yes, it's difficult to stop an addiction. We've already talked twice about stopping an addiction to drama or an addiction to lying or fear or whatever. Yes, it's tough. I got it. It was tough when I quit using narcotics. But the alternative was to continue using them and be dead. So at some point we have to decide which price we want to pay. And stopping our addictions and identifying our unproductive behaviors always has a lesser cost than not identifying them and continuing them. You continue. This is what I've learned now. It's all about fear. Yep, it's almost always about fear. A pattern. I'm not a good listener because I'm trying to get the answer. I'm not being loving. It's selfish. Now, this is going to get harder for you right this second. You're right. You're not a good listener, but it's not because you're trying to get the answer. It's because you're trying to get your answer. You're trying to get an answer you'd like. I see this everywhere I go. People ask a question, somebody answers their question. They keep asking the question over and over in different ways because they didn't like the answer. If people do that with me, I go, well, if you wanted a different answer, then if you want one, you're going to have to talk to a different person. Because even though you've asked me the same question 6 different ways, have you noticed I keep answering it the same way? And you tend to look for not the answer you need, but the answer you want. Why do you want a particular answer? Because it would fit into your present pattern. It would make your life easy. You wouldn't have to change. All the while creating the appearance that you actually have changed your pattern. So you see how complicated this is getting? You continue. So why do I need the answers? Shame. I remember the pain it was when I didn't have the answer. I remember the humility, the embarrassment, the stupid judgments, the worthlessness, the not feeling loved or lovable when I didn't know an answer. And yes, I understand all of that. Not having answers means you're out of control, and it's smart of you to identify that. You say, as a kid, I had a learning disability and a lisp, and I worked with a speech therapist. So even if I had the answer, I would be laughed at for how I said the answer. No matter what I said, it was painful. Perfect identification so far, honey. Not complicated. Pain is what perpetuates our patterns. You continue. I was taught that I had to push through everything. So pushing and controlling, that's all I know. It's the only way that I've learned. That's right. You're just controlling pain. That's what controllers do. They're not intentionally primarily trying to control people. They try to control pain. Solution? You have to live in the pain long enough to actually deal with the real cause, instead of trying to get rid of your pain with controlling and manipulating. It seems kind of counterintuitive, doesn't it? So here's what you do. Here's what you presently do. I'm in pain, number one. So number two, immediately get rid of the pain at all costs, right? That seems perfectly logical. I get it. But it's wrong. It's what all addicts do. All addicts. I'm in pain, get rid of the pain. And what do we use to get rid of our pain? Whatever we're addicted to. Being right, drama, drugs, sex, control, blah, 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 blah. Goes on and on and on. So what is the real solution? I'm in pain, same as the first series. But number two, I'm going to use the pain as information to get to the bottom of the cause. Number three, I'll use the truth and love to investigate what really eliminates the pain without just superficially treating it. That's the entire purpose of real love. Four, this process takes patience and time and faith. That's the solution, honey. The real one. Your pain tells you where you are in the process of learning and healing. This process takes real guts, my dear. There is no quick and easy way. A lady wrote me just the other day and asked for an easy solution to change her daughter's behavior. And I wrote her back, you already know the answer. You just have to keep doing it. And she wrote back and said, so you're not selling any magic beans today? From the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. No, there is no quick and easy way. But the more you trust, the more you do what you know, the easier it becomes, and the more quickly it happens. For you, it would take some pretty darned experienced coaches because you're very clever at hiding what you do. Not an insult, not a compliment. You've just learned some pretty great ways to survive, and now they keep you from truly living. Your cleverness has now come home to cost you, because not just anybody can help you now. You said, you continue, I have so much to learn. You really do. You say, I've lived in shame from the time I was in my mother's womb, and then I was taught that they were ashamed of me, my parents, so I believed the lie. It may not be easy for you to unlearn these lies, but you can. The laws of happiness are immutable. Really. They work. All you have to do is keep applying them over and over again. There are no magic beans. Here's somebody who said, or says, depends on how you care to read it, whether it's in the past tense or present. Yesterday, I had a medical procedure done that required anesthesia, and the surgery center required that somebody come and pick me up afterward. My son dropped me off at 9:30 in the morning, and my former husband agreed to pick me up at noon, which was my scheduled departure time. My ex and I get along pretty well and occasionally do favors for each other, like this one. Noon came and went, no ex. The nurses were calling and calling, both his home and his cell, with no response. This dragged on for a while, and they finally were able to contact my son, and he came back to get me in good spirits. And actually, he was pretty funny, and he said, what kind of son would I be if I left my mother stranded at the hospital? I was wide awake and feeling good. Okay, so far so good. You continue. Here's where real love comes into this. I had a momentary burst of anger, a bout of self-pity that there I was all alone and nobody was coming to get me. Oh, woe is me. Drama. This is an example. Drama. The fact is what? We've been talking about drama all this video chat, so I'll give you an example. The facts are simply this. Somebody was supposed to come and pick me up at noon. They're late. I'm probably going to have to make other arrangements. There. Those are the facts of the case, as they would say in court. The drama is, I'm all alone. Well, no, actually, there are 7 billion other people on Earth. You're not all alone. You're in a hospital filled with people. You know a bunch of people. Nobody's coming to get me. See, that's drama. And it's very addictive because then you get everybody's attention. Nurses start calling, people come and check on you. They give you delicious little treats like ice chips and stuff like that. But that passed, you said. Years ago, I would have been livid for hours, for days. Eventually, I became concerned that something had happened to my ex. I would suggest that that's probably another dramatic lie that you're telling yourself. So you tend to bounce from one drama to the other. I mean, the guy is late. My bet is that he has a history of being late and irresponsible, which is probably one of the reasons he's your ex. So to go from I'm abandoned and alone to, oh, maybe something's happened to him. Maybe there's been a multiple murder and he was killed. Drama. You continue. I had decided that if I didn't hear anything from him by today, I would go to his house with a key to see if he was alive or dead. Drama. The phone rang at 8 p.m. last night. There's been a lot of drama in this. The phone rang at 8 o'clock last night, and there he was, 8 hours late. That's pretty late. He said, "Oh, was this the day?" I love hearing the excuses of irresponsible people. I just love them. Oh, you meant May 14th. Jeez. And he said he stayed up late and slept in. I'm also pretty sure what happened is that he was on an alcoholic binge, and so he forgot, and he was probably hungover and probably didn't even check his voicemail. And this is why he's your ex. You said, I told him my plan to come to see if he was dead or alive, and he mentioned that I probably wanted to kill him. I could honestly say that I wasn't angry, just concerned. Maybe, but also still dramatic. I assured him that it turned out fine, no problem. Lecturing would have been pointless, and he still can't tell the truth about anything that concerns his drinking. Well, good for you. I mean, how grown up in that at least you didn't, blow up on him. Nice work. But your ex is what he is. You know he's an alcoholic. You know he's a practicing drinking alcoholic. So relying on him to do anything is, well, a little dense on your part and almost begging for drama. You continue. Now here's the lesson. This was all my fault. I took the easy way when I know he's a practicing alcoholic. He means well, but it was a reminder that he can be unreliable. You're being very sweet, actually, that he's actually almost always unreliable. It's one of the main reasons I left the marriage. In the future, I'd let him pick him up from any place where I would not be stuck if he didn't show up. The fact that he's proven reliable a few times doesn't mean much as long as he continues to drink. No, it doesn't. When we're dealing with an irresponsible person, like a drunk or a runner or whatever, we tend to be optimistic. I hear this almost every day when somebody's talking about an addict of some kind. Well, but he's a good person. Yes, I happen to believe that at heart, everybody is a good person. And he's a lying, deceptive, manipulating alcoholic and drug addict. So you don't ask him to do things for you. The fact that he's a good person or occasionally is generous has nothing to do with relying on them. We tend to talk about these positive moments because we want things to be different. It's actually quite selfish on our part. We don't think of it as selfish, but it is. We have no right to be optimistic about somebody's behavior. We don't get to determine whether somebody's probably going to do a thing, or pessimistic for that matter, just realistic. You could ask this guy to do something, for sure, your ex, but you could never count on it. It would have to be something that just really didn't matter to you. If you're coming by my part of town, bring a loaf of bread, but you would do that only if you already had 12 loaves of bread. It's not a terrible policy overall with most people, actually. Some people are responsible and they will do as they're asked, but we don't have a right to expect them to do stuff for us, regardless of their past history of being reliable or not. You continue. The alcohol is always first, as it is with any practicing alcoholic. I'm so grateful to real love. Learning a lesson and choosing to be happy is way more fun than getting angry and acting victimized. You did good, kid. Despite the fact that you screwed up expecting an alcoholic to show up on time, overall, what I get from what you're writing here is that you feel peaceful. You like your life. You didn't go to pieces over this. You screwed up over your expectations, but it didn't take your happiness away from you. You are an example of somebody who has made the effort to find the love that you need, to trust the love, to remember the love, and to practice loving other people. And as a result, the laws of happiness have proven out. You're happy, as are all the people who do this, and as are all the people that I've used as examples in the process of this particular video chat. If we keep the laws of happiness, we will be happy. Guaranteed. I look forward to seeing you next week.